thing. And he's like, I can tell you for a fact that you do have fibroids. I know it's multiple fibroids, but I cannot tell exactly where and how many there are. So for that, I'm going to run an ultrasound right here in my office, and then I will book you for multiple, tests, because I think you need to do a surgery ASAP.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Anya Fombad, and I spark the hard conversations that challenge questionable cultural and societal norms that threaten the well-being of the African community. And I also share stories about growing up as Africans in Africa and in the diaspora. I strongly believe that normalizing open discussions and sharing experiences, whether good or bad, will not only make you find your voice, but will broaden your sense of purpose and empower others to do the same. So if you have ever tried challenging certain African cultural and societal doctrines, or if you have ever felt like it is about time that we confronted these issues in our African community and do better as a people, or even if you have always been interested in learning about the experiences of other Africans growing up in Africa and the diaspora, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Living African. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Living African. So today we will be talking about fibroids. So while we talk about all the factors that influence some societal and cultural pressures and ideologies in our African communities, like the pressure to get married, pressure to have kids, for example, I believe it is time that we give more light to the realities of certain things that many of our people experience, which most people don't know about. So I would love for us to use this platform to openly speak about some of the issues that our African men and women go through, which are typically not talked about otherwise. Today, we will shed more light on fibroids and how they impact fertility in women. Now, this is the first time we are talking about topics as such, but it will definitely not be the last time. We will definitely revisit these topics as they are very important in giving perspective and shedding more light on the other side of the story, which we tend to forget when asking questions, which may come off as insensitive sometimes. So what are fibroids and how do they impact fertility? So according to the Office on Women's Health, fibroids are muscular tumors that grow in the wall of the uterus or the womb of a woman. They are almost always not cancerous, meaning they don't cause cancer, and they can grow as a single tumor, or they can be many of them in the uterus. They can be as small as an apple seed or as big as a grapefruit. In unusual cases, they can actually become very large. So about a few statistics on fibroids, up to about 80% of women develop fibroids by the time they reach 50. And actually fibroids are more common in Black women compared to other races. According to the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, fibroids are responsible for infertility in about 5 to 10% of women. Now this actually seems small, but you probably know more women who have fibroids and are struggling to conceive than not. The types of fibroids that most likely affect fertility are located inside the cavity of the uterus, or they are usually the ones that are very large and growing inside the wall of the uterus. Now, factors that increase a woman's risk of developing fibroids are age, family history, ethnic origin, obesity, and even eating habits. Fibroids come with several different symptoms, which are sometimes very difficult, and these include painful and heavy menstrual bleeding, frequent urination, or the large fibroids can actually cause the abdomen or the stomach area to enlarge, making a woman look pregnant. So talking about pregnancy, fibroids also affect pregnancy, which could put the mother or the baby at risk. Now, no one really knows for sure what causes fibroids, but some researchers think that it could be hormonal or genetic. So now that we have an idea about what fibroids are, I think we should learn more about what it means to live with fibroids and how it affects the quality of life from a health, emotional, and mental perspective from the experience of others. So today I have my very good friend with me, Nehawa Abam, and she will be sharing her story about fibroids and what life has been like living with fibroids. So hi, Ne. I am so happy to have you on here on this platform, and it's such an honor to hear your story and just to listen to you speak about such an important topic, especially in the lives of Black women all over the world and most importantly in Africa. So I just want to officially welcome you to Living African Podcast, and I look forward to our conversation. How are you doing today?
Hi, Miss Anya. Thank you. I mean, I always call you Miss Anya, right?
I know. And I love that. It makes me feel ladylike.
You are, and you're always so beautiful. I always marvel at how pretty you look every time I see you.
Oh my goodness.
And,
thank you.
I mean, I'm really excited. I might even look nervous being on this platform because it's a platform that's really very uplifting. And I think as an African in the diaspora, this is something that I look forward to. Every time you post an episode, I look forward to it because there's always something that you could relate to, or maybe not relate to, but the things that I've heard on the platform that has probably changed my perspective on how I reasoned on something. So it's really an honor to be here and to talk about, something as important as fibroids, and maybe from my perspective.
Right. Thank you so much for those kind words. And like I said, it's words like this that keep me going. I mean, of course, the purpose drives me, but sometimes we get discouraged and, like every other person, sometimes you just don't have the same momentum to keep going. And then somebody comes up and just, tells you how much of an impact you're making in their lives, and it changes everything. So I really appreciate it, and I really want to thank you for that. Now, so can you introduce yourself to our listeners for them to know more about you and the work you do?
Thank you. So as you rightly said, I am Nehawa Abam, and it's always a challenge for me to introduce myself because I'm trying very hard to be modest here. But I will just come directly and tell you I am the founder of a very small organization called FIBROIDS Awareness CAM. Right. And this is a platform that was birthed out of my own experience with fibroids. And every time I talk about Fibroids Awareness CAM, I always have to appreciate a dear friend of mine, Dr. Abime, because she actually put me in the place where I was ready to talk about it. And because I was affected by this monstrous situation, and I just really didn't know how to handle it. Right. And I knew I had to talk about it to someone, I needed to let other women know what's happening. But I just don't think that I was in the right space of mind at the time. But then when I spoke with Dr. Abime, she was like, no, babes, we have to get the word out. Right. So Fibroids Awareness Camp was birthed in June of 2020, which is last year. A lot of things happened last year. Right, some good things came out of whatever situation we found ourselves last year. So we've been running now for about a year, and basically our focus is with our sisters back in Cameroon, because I know there's a lot of talk about fibroids and the sensitization out here, but back at home, there is a disconnect, and there are taboos, there are religious views, there are, just emotional and mental situations are not letting people come up front and own the situation and say, okay, yes, I do have fibroids, but it's not your fault. I'm not the cause of my fibroids. So This little group, initially I used to think of it as a watch group or, as a sisterhood. And so it's just somewhere that we can come and share the information on the medical perspective from patient experience maybe, or, and then there's people who don't even know anything about it. And there's others who know so much about it, but have never seen it as a threat. Yeah. So this is really just a small, like a watch group, really. Watch your sister, watch the back of your sister kind of group. Right. And we hope that, this is the first year we've been clumsy about, have so many ideas, so many approaches that we want to go. And we failed in quite a number of them, but effectively people are listening, because literally every day when I wake up and I get a message from one young lady or another, and actually I'm even getting messages from people who are not even Cameroonians, and they're reaching out and they're like, Nene, you're doing a great job. Please, how can I do this? How can I do that? Or how did you manage this? When I see those messages, then I know that even if we're not getting our target group in Cameroon right now, we're still reaching out to someone and that message might translate to someone back at home or something like that. So that's basically Fibroids Awareness Cam.
Wow. You seem to be doing such a great job in such a short time so far. And I mean, we're going to talk more about that later. And I honestly, I'm looking forward to that because I'd really love to learn more about that. But I can definitely identify to certain things that you're talking about in terms of, it's kind of a taboo, and a lot of women that struggle with the fibroid issues, but they just don't have that audacity or that boldness or that even vulnerability to step up and speak about it, or even confide in someone or a health professional who can help them, So yeah, I definitely look forward to us talking about that. Now, tell us about your story and basically how you came to realize that you had fibroids.
Okay. So my story probably started as far back as 2017. But at the time, I wasn't even aware that this was, the situation that I was dealing with. I was newlywed, in all the glory, basking, and I was pregnant. And, that was a very happy moment for me. However, that happiness was very momentary. I had a miscarriage, and that's when everything started to go downhill. Of course, you know me, you know me from way back. You know that I wasn't always this chubby. I was on the slimmer side, very much so. And even when I was pregnant, I was. But when I had a miscarriage, and I cannot tell you for a fact if it was the fibroids that triggered the miscarriage, or if it was after the miscarriage that I the hormones triggered, a rapid growth of my tumors. However, I had that miscarriage, and that's when, a lot of things changed physically, complexion, I was gaining weight in the abdominal area. And in fact, people thought I was pregnant for months and even for years because I struggled with that. So I've been to doctors back at home. I was in Cameroon. I was in between Cameroon and Nigeria at the time. And I saw doctors in Cameroon and even doctors in Nigeria. But the response I was getting was like, it's okay. You just had a miscarriage. It's hormones. It will balance out. Don't worry. You have kids, blah, blah, blah. And it's only when I moved to Dubai and years after, because when I moved to Dubai, I went to see a doctor and she was like, no, it's okay. You just have H. pylori. I'm not medical, so I don't really know what all these things are. But she was treating me for H. pylori and gastritis. And she treated me for that for like 8 months. And at that point in time, I'm like, no, there's something wrong. So I really started to, and also I had been trying, of course, having a miscarriage and all of that. It worried me because I wanted kids as fast as possible. And unfortunately for me, my situation was a little bit more stressful because at the time, my husband and I didn't live together. We lived very different axes. And so we had just one chance every time we met. And so that was in the way. And I didn't even know that this was what was always keeping me in the, which is what was always in the way of, trying to conceive and all of that. So at that point, I had been researching a lot. And every time I research, I would see, information about fibroids. And so it began to click in my mind, like, could this be it? But I'm like, nah, it cannot really. But the last straw for me was when I went home in 2019 to see my dad. He was really critically ill. He had cancer at the time. And when I got there, him and my mom, their expressions were, it was so real, like raw, that, I began to feel concerned because they looked at me and they're like, something is wrong. Like, this can't be our kid, because I looked pregnant. I really looked like I was 9 months pregnant plus. And, I had difficulties working. I was always tired, fatigued. My complexion was crazy. My face, I had it was really, I had like so much hyperpigmentation all over. So, my mom really, my dad, of course, was, not talking much about it because he was in pain. But my mom was very vocal. She was like, no, something is wrong. So after that trip, I went back the same day I got to Dubai. I went to see a specialist because I was like, if I'm just seeing a general
practitioner
and all I'm getting is H. pylori, which I've been treating for years. And by the way, I was on all kinds of slim course regimes. I was hitting the gym, paying, doing dieting, waist trainers, all those things, and it wasn't working. So now with mom's genuine concern, I'm like, no, there's no time to waste. So the moment I got back to Dubai, that same day I booked an appointment. I was lucky to get one with an amazing doctor. I didn't know him before that. I just went there. And when I walked into his office, the first thing he said to me, smiling actually, because this is what he does. And he's beat women like me every day. He's like, you have fibroids, but I want to hear your story.
Oh,
so wow. I sat there wondering, like, how does he know? But I just gave him a background of, my medical history and everything. And he's like, I can tell you for a fact that you do have fibroids. I know it's multiple fibroids, but I cannot tell exactly where and how many there are. So for that, I'm going to run an ultrasound right here in my office. And then I will book you for multiple, tests, because I think you need to do a surgery ASAP. In fact, he was already telling me that he won't want to wait 2 weeks for me to have that surgery because it's really urgent. And so we went and did the ultrasound. His office ultrasound actually showed I had multiple, maybe they showed about 20 plus. But as the days passed, he booked me really for all those tests that he said. And I went and did an MRI scan, and the MRI scan showed that I had 40 plus fibroids of different shapes and sizes. I mean, all the different types of fibroids that you can imagine. There's 4 main types of fibroids. There's intramurals, there's submucosorals, there's submucosals and pedicular. I had all of that. And, Dr. Simon was thorough. He put me through every medical test to prepare me for that 2 weeks deadline that he gave me. He was very sure he needed to do it within 2 weeks, and he did it actually in 3 weeks. But within that time period, he put me through everything. I saw ENT doctors, I saw anesthesiologists, I saw health and fitness, I saw nutritionists, basically everything that you can think of to prepare me for that period. It's a really short period of time. But one thing I can tell you, Miss Anya, is that I wasn't mentally prepared for what was coming.
Right.
I just thought, how hard can it be? I was reading online, Googling stuff, and I'm just like, okay, fine. And I have to say that before I jump into the rest of the story, because I think this will be a story that we'll probably have to go back and forth sometimes, depending on, just so we don't miss out on anything.
Yeah. So
one of the things I want to say before we proceed is having a support system when you're going through something like this is very important, because I can tell you for a fact, emotionally and mentally, it's very crushing. It's heavy. And I was alone at the time. None of my family lived in Dubai with me. Right. Because my husband was still on a different axis, my family on a different axis. And it was a trying time for us because my dad was literally dying. Oh my goodness. And I had a friend who was my colleague, and we were sisters till date. And Gemma, she, I just told her casually, like 2 days to my surgery, I just told her, like, I'm going in for surgery, and I'll see you when I get back. And she was like, there's no way you're going in. Like, she was like, do you even understand what you're saying? And she dropped everything. She took off work. It was her and another Indian friend of mine. They both took off work, which was hard because the company we were working for were like slave drivers. They would not let us take that kind of off. But they did. I don't know how they did it, but the two of them took off, and they were there with me the day I actually went in for surgery. I'll show you pictures and videos in the back. I was dancing. I'm foolish. I was being really foolish dancing. I really wasn't prepared for that. But maybe it was a good thing that I was kind of ignorant and a bit, innocent and just dancing, because when I came out of surgery, I was a completely different person. It was really a life and death situation. It was like I was back from the land of the dead. So Gemma was there. She held my hand through everything. She's the one who probably signed that form that says if anything goes wrong. And I didn't even know she signed that. She was going to bear the brunt of that. And we went in. Within a few minutes of me being in, they knocked me out and I was gone. And I only woke up like 1,000 years after. And she gave me and every time she tells me her side of the story, I feel emotional because I don't know why she would even carry that weight. We were just friends, Yeah. And she carried that kind of heavy weight, which was supposed to be something that my family should have carried if they were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
She told me she was standing out there for 5 good hours and no one would talk to her. No one would tell her what was going in. And she was just scared. And after like 5.5 hours of all of that, the doctor came out and told her it was successful, but I had lost so much blood and, I was in ICU. She couldn't even see me at the time. She only came hours after. And I remember waking up and she was the first person I saw. It was just like love at first sight. That's all you probably need when you're going through something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm grateful to Njema because if I didn't have her, I don't know what would have been my story. Maybe it would have been a different thing. But yes, they took out 41 fibroids out of me. And the biggest one looked like the head of a baby. Yes.
That's literally like a grapefruit.
Yes. And they were all different shapes and sizes, and they were filled up in a bucket. And when they weighed everything, it was really heavy. And the doctor and his partner came in and said, you were carrying the weight of 2 real full-term babies in you. Yes. And my weight at the time before the surgery was about 89 kgs. I don't know. I don't know how much that is in pounds here.
Yeah. That's about maybe 185 pounds or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. And after surgery, I was back down to about 65 or so.
Yeah. Wow.
But yes, there is, I've been in this fibroids thing now for almost 2 years. And one thing I want to say is that there's a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of misinformation. And that's why I'm trying to set the record straight. I'm not a medical official, so sometimes my information might not feel like it's accurate for some people, but I'm saying it based off of my own experience. There's people that will tell you that no, if you're only living a holistic lifestyle, then you cannot have fibroids as huge as that. I can discredit you for that because I met and befriended a lady who lives that lifestyle. She looks very slim.
Yeah.
There's people who are asymptomatic and there's people who are symptomatic like me. I had all the symptoms going for me, from the painful periods to, blood clots and, nausea, all those things. However, my friend, she didn't look it. But when she went for her surgery, she had about 20 plus come out of her. So as you rightly said in the beginning, there is no straightforward cause as of now, but there are risk factors. And if we pay attention to the risk factors, you can actually eliminate the chances of having, not eliminating the chances of having it completely, because that's really not in your control, but you can eliminate the chances of having it at such critical level. So you can manage it. What I know today, as opposed to what I knew then. Because earlier this year because I do my regular checkups, and earlier this year when I went in for one of my checkups recently, the ultrasound showed that there's some new generations. I haven't talked about this yet, but why not talk about it on your platform?
Right.
And if that was me 2 years ago, I would have panicked. I would be like, why? But this time around, I know better. First of all, this is not growing in the cavity of my uterus anymore, and they're very small and very almost insignificant, but an insignificant fibroid could easily become a very significant fibroid in a short time. And it's different for some people. Some people take years to grow their fibroids to significant shape and sizes, and others would just grow like literally within weeks and months.
Right.
So first thing that I want to say based off of my experience, this is the backstory. I won't talk too much about it, but pay attention. It's your body, and your body speaks to you. We just don't listen. As African women, we are not really cultured to listen to our bodies.
Right.
We're not cultured to pay attention to our health. We don't even have a healthcare system that, educates or sensitizes women or the men in your life, about situations like this. Literally every situation that is a healthcare scare for a woman is related to her fertility.
Yeah.
If you have breast cancer, it's still related to your fertility somehow. If you have fibroids, if you have cervical cancer, all of those things, it's really related to your fertility, which in actual terms, I don't know what would be the right way to put it, is what really makes you a woman. Because what differentiates you from the other gender is that you have the possibility of carrying life within you. So once that feels like it's taken away from you, then you really begin to feel like, what am I worth? And then, unfortunately, there is no preparation for all of that. The mental preparation as well. Our cultures really press down on emotions.
Yeah.
Oh, like this, I feel like this. Nah, you're good. You're good. You're a strong woman. Handle it.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. Truly, I am a strong woman, but you know what? I'm vulnerable sometimes, and I just want to talk about it. I just want to, even not just talk about it, but I just want someone to understand that, I'm going through something.
Right.
And, the men need to be there to support their wives or their sisters, because it might not be your wife, but it could be your sister. You know this, you've read the statistics. Yeah. For us, black women of African descent, it's out of every 20 women, there's like 13 to 15 that have fibroids. Out of the 13 to 15, there's like 5 who really know that they have fibroids, and there's like 10 who don't even know what's going on.
Right.
So a man in your life should be supportive enough. They should also be educated about your biology. Yeah. Why are you having such irregular cycle? That's something that I never paid attention. I was a tomboy. I didn't know that having irregular cycle was not normal. It's actually not normal. Yeah. Pay attention to those things. Yeah. Your body will speak louder than any doctor will speak to you. So, and then a very important thing I want to say, we're all coming from different religious backgrounds or denominations. So some of the actions that people take towards these medical conditions are based off of their faith as well. But I want to say this from my Christian perspective. God really is the healer, and he's the one who will take you out of that situation. But then God has inspired humans, because we are masterpieces in his eyes. And he has inspired us to know about science, know about technology, which aids in that process of healing.
Yes.
So while you pray, and please pray, because that's what you would need. But remember that you have to go see a doctor. Because even if the doctor gives you a false report, you need that report as a motivation to be like, okay, Lord Jesus, you need to really take me out of this dungeon that I find myself in. But if you're just praying without any backing, and you're expecting this huge miracle to happen, it could happen.
Right.
And I want it to happen.
Right.
But what motivates you to actually take care? Because some people just pray and they don't take care of their health. So there's so many factors. And I don't think that we could talk about it all in one day. But basic understanding of this situation is that women have to know, one, it's not a taboo. It's not your fault. The people that are around them have to be extra supportive. Try to understand, even if you don't want to, even if you don't know what she's talking about, just try to give her a listening ear and understand where she's coming from. Then you could throw whatever you want to throw at her, but then she would have told you that this is where I'm coming from.
Right.
And thirdly, the doctors as well. Back in Cameroon, I have to say that it's like, and please, nobody should come for me. It's my experience. I'm sorry.
Right.
But I have to say the doctors also have to go with the times. They have to update their information.
Yeah,
and they
that's
have
true.
to be, they have to update the information. They have to be ready to be empathetic towards the patient, because sometimes we don't really know what we're dealing with. And when you're just throwing your big terms at us, you scare me, or you scare the person, and then you throw them into a depression, and they probably never come out of that to be able to actually take care of themselves in this situation. It could be someone could just have a very minor case of fibroids, like 1 or 2 here and there. And, maybe if she does focus on her holistic lifestyle or the fitness, the exercise, which is very good for you, that could shrink it to a reasonable size. However, if they're scared, they'll think this is the end of it, and nobody would want to do anything further.
That's very true. Thank you so much for everything that you've said. I mean, there are a few things that I could actually identify with you. On a personal level, I actually have fibroids as well. I mean, I really, well, it's not like I'm hiding it from anybody. It's just a discussion that has really never come up. So ironically, it came up on my platform. So yay. But I also have fibroids, but just like about 80% of women that, exist on planet Earth, or at least for the most part, especially the Black women, just about 80% of us, almost a lot of my friends as well have fibroids. Every other friend I have has fibroids, mine is not as severe, because it's relatively smaller. It's not insignificant. I won't call it insignificant, but it's relatively smaller, but it has played a huge role in terms of the risk that's associated with trying to conceive, and also just, being pregnant and stuff like that, just like any other woman. But in terms of symptoms as well, I typically have very regular symptoms. And when I say regular, my period does not miss a day. If it comes early, if it misses, if it's irregular, it comes a day before, but it never goes late, or it never extends to a point. But I tend to realize that, when I started having fibroids, or when I was diagnosed with the fibroids through an annual exam, I actually, eventually, I started having very heavy bleeding, which was not long, but just heavy, relatively heavy than it usually was, In terms of pain, maybe every now and then I could have a little bit of pain, but then I probably thought it was also a cyst and stuff like that. So there are a lot of very silent symptoms that we tend to have that we also just ignore, because we're like, oh yeah, especially in Africa, where we are so consumed with the communicable diseases like malaria, but typhoid, cholera, and all of those things, things that you feel, you know what I mean? You have a headache, oh yeah, I'm sick. You have a bellyache, oh yeah, I'm sick. But there are some silent symptoms that we also have to really, really focus on, and in subsequent episodes, we will talk a lot about that. But I would only imagine that based off of your experience going through all of that ordeal that you just explained to us or told us about, you were not only going through your health issues with the fibroids, but you were also going through personal issues, family issues. Your dad was literally sick and dying, that must have taken a huge emotional toll on you, and even a mental toll on you. So I'm glad that you had some support, even though ideally you would have preferred more support, especially from your immediate family. But there are some women who actually don't even have that support as a whole. You know what I mean? So from this whole experience, how did you handle the emotional and even the mental aspect of this experience that you had with fibroid?
I'm trying to see from what angle I want to answer this. But one thing I want to say is that I think, first of all, even on a daily basis, I'm actually really good at masking my emotions. Growing up, I was very much emotional. You could see that. But as I grew older, I really learned the very subtle art of masking my emotions. I would, not show weakness on the outside, and when I'm alone, I'll just let it out. So, but I think that the most important thing for me was that when I needed to let it out, I will.
Yeah.
You have to. So I would cry in the shower. I would cry on my pillows. My pillows have stories to tell. They could tell you, a lot. But also, when I did get a chance, I have people in my life who also stand as pinnacles of support. And at times like that, I do reach out to some of those people. I find out that those that are closest to me, my direct family, because sometimes they do also rely on my strength as well. When I'm coming broken, it probably scares them. And, they don't handle it very easy. But then, like I said, I have people in my very intimate circle who, balance that out. I don't know if it's true for you or for anyone, but those that you love the most or who love you the most, sometimes they're scared to see you broken. Right. And it's just not something that is very easy for them to handle.
Right.
So I have a sister, you know her. She's my pinnacle of support. So on days when I'm broken, I call her and we just talk about everything. And she always would have a word of wisdom to give me. And sometimes I talk to John, And you know what? I have to actually have a sit down with John and find out about his mental state dealing with what I was going through too, because I've never really asked him. It must have been tough for him because he wasn't there.
And he's your husband, by the way, for those who don't know who John is.
Sorry, guys. By default, you just say his name.
Right.
So John is my husband. And John was amazing through that. He held me down, I would say. And for those who have met John, he's very quiet and intense and, it's like a blanket, so it just covers you. During that period, when I came out and I was in the ICU, I was there for a couple of days, really broken and everything. And then I got discharged to the regular ward. And the day that I actually got discharged out of the hospital, like 8 days after, I lost my dad eventually. So that was when I knew that actually, as strong as you can be, it's really, I don't know how to put it. But one thing that was most difficult for me, and I think that if I did that and I'm still living today, then anyone else can also go through a lot and find their strength. So I came in, I was broken, I could not walk. And Gemma was there the whole time with me. She was literally sleeping on the floor while I slept in the bed. And I got that call that said my dad passed away, and I was wailing like crazy. And I still had a cataract. There's a blood bag. I don't know how to call it. So I always just call it a blood bag. There's a blood bag attached to my stomach because I had another second incision aside from my main incision where it was draining the bad blood and everything. So I still had that bag and it was right inside me. So I would go everywhere with that bag. And when I got that news, it was 6 a.m. Dubai time, I was wailing like crazy. Within 30 minutes, that bag was filled. So she was panicking. And she did not know what to do, but she was trying very hard not to lose it for me. And she called the doctor, and the doctor was like, please, on no occasion should this woman cry, because the stitches were raw stitches. I had not gone for my, the change.
Your first checkup, yeah.
Yes, I had not. So it was a challenge for her to try to calm me down. And then it was even more of a challenge for me to know that my dad was no more, and my dad was the best friend in life for me. Right. He was literally everything. So I'm sitting there trying to process all of this and not being, we Africans are dramatic. Nobody, you lost somebody like that, you'll be wailing and rolling. And I couldn't do all of that. I couldn't even weep. And so I had to find inner strength. And that's why my catchphrase for fibroids awareness is turn your pain into strength, really. That's what it is. It's turn your pain into strength. So you can actually channel all that energy and all that negative vibe. You can just channel it into something that will be more productive. So I had to find ways to deal with my mental, my mental health, my mental situation, and also my emotions. I was able to rein all of that, at least for that period of time. And I kept it reined in for like a year. Right. And it was only like last year, October, that a very tiny situation happened, and
you just let it out.
But I that's not my proudest moment. I really do not like to relive that moment. And I'd say I have to have a segment where I've been wanting to have a segment where I talk about this dealing with the mental side of fibroids.
Yeah.
But the thing I want to say is that don't rein it in too long.
Yeah.
Take breaks from reining it in.
Right.
Just talk to someone. And if you can't even get someone in your circle to talk to, get professional help. Seek professional, officer or somebody to talk to. Or if you feel like you can't talk about it to your inner circle, you can talk to a stranger, maybe at church or something. You need to take breaks from reining it in, because on the day that it goes off, you would have no control over how it goes up.
Right.
And then, that's very unhealthy.
Right. That's very true. So now let's talk about after the surgery, because we're going to talk more about this later, like when we're digging deep into, like the outlook on fibroids, especially African women's perspective in Africa, in our African communities. But a lot of women shy away from the surgery. I mean, sometimes the doctors discourage surgery, which is understandably so, because it's a very high risk. They could end up even having a hysterectomy, actually, which is a removal of basically the entire uterus, like your womb. They're gonna remove everything, so you're not going to be able to have kids. And a lot of women shy away from that risk, but sometimes you have to weigh the risk versus benefit. Now, what was your own prognosis after you had the surgery and everything? Like, what did the doctor tell you about, your ability to conceive, or like what was your prognosis and what was the outcome of that surgery and the whole session?
Okay, so before we even get to the prognosis part, from my diagnosis, I told you that when I walked into that office, the guy was already, he already knew what he was dealing with. So one of the very pertinent questions he asked me, and I would like for women to pay attention to some of these questions when you're dealing with the doctor, because you need more than one or two opinions in case you feel like you're not comfortable with the information that is being passed on to you. Mm-hmm. Don't feel a type of way that, no, doctor said this, and because he said this, I have to go with this. No, he said this, and your instinct is telling you this is not correct. Go for a second one with someone else. Mm-hmm. So he said something pertinent to me, and I respect him for that. He said to me, I want to know how old you are, and if you're married, and if you've had kids before, or if you want to have kids. And I gave him that information, and I told him, certainly, I've been trying to conceive. And he said to me, Nene, what I'll do for you is I will do everything possible to make sure that I preserve your uterus, because you do need that. Mm-hmm. However, if push comes to shove and I have to choose your life over your uterus, I will definitely choose your life.
Right.
And he said that in the office, and he repeated that statement just few seconds before I jumped onto the operating table. That was the first time he said it was not intimidating, but the second time around, when you're about to go into a life or death kind of situation, it was really intimidating. And I remember, like, God forbidding, Lord Jesus, take the wheel kind of situation in my mind. But on the other front, I was like, yeah, do what you need to do. But I was really scared deep down, because I do not want to lose my womb so early. But then if that was what had to be done, maybe. But then again, let me say something. Some of the doctors are probably using the easy way out. They are only thinking of taking it out. Right. Maybe because of billing hours, whatever it may be. It's at the end of the day, they're in a business as well. But then I would love even for people in the medical field to look at it like this way. You're dealing with life as opposed to just the business that you're dealing with. Like any other business that's been handled doesn't really necessarily deal with life on the upfront like that. Yes, it does deal with people's lives, but then not someone actually literally putting their life in your hands like that. When doctors just meet a lady, and this happens really mostly with the Black ladies, women of African descent, when they meet doctors, it's usually they just give them that as a final option. And most of them don't know the story. Most of them don't do the research before getting to the doctor's office. So when a doctor tells you hysterectomy, you're like, oh my God, my life is finished. And that's all you're thinking about. But this is 2021. There are many other treatment options available to treat fibroids, depending on the location and the sizes of your fibroids. That's what a lot of people don't really know. And the worst part is, if out here in the diaspora where there's information on the go and people still don't know, then imagine the kind of information that people have back at home.
Right.
Do you understand?
Right.
It's actually outdated, like all they think about. And then people, like I said, again, back at home, the challenge is people are faced with their views as well. Oh, the pastor said I cannot have a surgery. It's against my faith. Oh, I cannot have a blood transfusion. It's against my faith. Oh, it's a taboo. In our family, we don't do surgery. You understand? Those things, you meet those things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what are you interested in doing? Are you trying to save your life? Or are you trying to cling on to some ideology
Yeah.
or someone else's perspective of what they think you should have. I don't think that a doctor should just tell you, take a hysterectomy and run with it. I want a doctor to list everything that's on the table, even if it doesn't concern me. List it all. Let's have conversations, multiple conversations, and then you advise me based off on your situation and what we have available, because also based on the availability. If you went to a clinic in Atlanta, for example, there's many more opportunities there, because I've dealt with some of the doctors who are dealing with fibroids with people in Atlanta, and they're actually very much knowledgeable. They have advanced with a lot of things like that. But when I'm dealing with people in Cameroon, it's not the same. Yeah. It's a unidirectional kind of treatment. It's either you do country medicine or you go and get cut open, or that's it. Or you wait until you give birth and then they take you out with your baby. But there's a lot of risk factors to that.
Yeah.
Your quality of life is changing with that. Like if you're symptomatic, like I was, there are times that I couldn't go out because you're just thinking, when that time of the morning is approaching, you're like, geez, I cannot wear white. Or I cannot even be out for so long, because you're thinking about how many times you have to rush the bathroom to change.
Yeah.
The pain, you can't eat. There's so many things. So women are going through stuff and they don't even know what they need to do, what they're dealing with, or what they need to do. So the advice I'm giving is both to the patients and also to the medical officials. Be empathetic enough to let these people know everything that's available, and then you tell them what you have and recommend. Don't just throw it in their faces. And then for the people as well, if someone diagnoses you and say, this is what you have. We're not living in 1992 where we had to really go and pay for internet one kind of way like that. Like, you can just, even if you don't have internet, why not call your friend and say, please, can you Google this for me? I need to know what this information is. And just know your information. So when they're telling you things, you're not looking stupid like, oh my God, what's happening? No. You should know. So when the doctor is saying, I'm going to propose a myectomy for you, you're like, okay, what kind of myectomy? Open myectomy or the laser infused ones? And now there are even more options like, the UFA, which is something that you can just sit in a chair and they do for you. And you don't have to have that very less invasive methods nowadays. So my prognosis was really based on my initial diagnosis. So I had already dealt with that in the initial stages. So, if I had come to that point where they were going to do something like that for me, and I probably woke up without a uterus, it would have been hard, but I probably would have had my closure.
Right.
Maybe. I cannot really tell. But one thing I can tell you is that it's scary to know that you have something and they're just going to take it away from you. Right. You should be willing to be the one to say, I'm giving this up. Like I've seen people who have gone through the whole fibroids thing, they've suffered, they've gone through multiple surgeries, miscarriages, blah, blah, blah. And they've actually probably gotten their kids and they're ready and they're just tired. They're like, okay, I have my kids now. I think I'm ready to let this go. That is understandable, as opposed to just having it snatched away from your hands like that.
That's very true. Thank you so much for that. Now, let's take it back a little bit. I know, like every girl has had that dream of, when they want to get married, when they want to have kids, when they want to be a president or a CEO of a company, like when we're growing up, every girl, and this is not only pertinent to the African community, every girl has that fairy tale dream. I want to be this in the future. I want my life to be this way and to be that way and stuff like that. And obviously, most of the times that never happens the way you plan, right? We make our plans and God laughs. But I believe I have had that for sure. And I believe you have also had those dreams of like, oh, I would have loved to have kids by this age. But then again, of course, things happen. And then, of course, fibroid happens, right? But how has this whole experience impacted your outlook on life and plans and dreams as a whole?
It's been hard. It's been really hard because I would say that I'm only just getting to a place where it feels like it's safe now. Because as I earlier told you, and for me, it was really quite difficult because we were not living we're not living together. We're always apart. We'd have opportunity to be together maybe once in a year for a very short, like 1 week to 2 weeks vacation. And I always would plan those vacations around, what I think is my revolving cycle, and put so much stress on me and my partner. And we end up being disappointed because it doesn't work out. First of all, the society also puts a lot of pressure on and people in general, like, before you get married, they're like, you're 25, you're 20 this, you're not married. Why your friends are married, they're having kids. And then you get married and it's like, when are you giving birth? People need to have their space and time. Yeah. And unfortunately, our community of people are nosy.
Oh, yes.
It's beautiful, but it's so annoying. Because sometimes you're dealing with these things which they don't know about, or sometimes they know and don't care.
Yeah.
And it's just really in your face, and sometimes you feel like you want to throw hands.
Right. Believe me, you.
Like, I will lay my paws on you, but no. So for me, I had to deal with a lot of that. When I got married, the questions, even when I was pregnant, people didn't know. Only my mom and inner circle knew. Mm-hmm. People would be asking, when are you sure? They'll even be asking my mom questions. Like, they'll literally be attacking my mom,
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to gain weight, those questions would be like, how far gone are you? Or when are you giving birth? Or you be pregnant for how long? Like,
wow.
Those type of questions, Or massa, you don't fat so, or like questions. And not only questions, but also they just throw statements at you, and they're so insensitive about that. So it's those type of things. For me, I'd say I grew a thick skin. When you throw something at me, I'll laugh. If I'm in the mood to answer you that day, I'll probably just say, But if I'm not in the mood, I'll just laugh it off and, and then I breathe, breathe. And move on with it. But I just learned at a very early stage to not deal with it. John also being very non-confrontational. He's not going to throw balls, but me, I would probably. But he just, just deal with it in his own way. But it was quite tough for me, my mom, because people would be asking her questions every time. Why am I not even with? They'll ask questions like, why am I not even? There's things that we cannot control. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to be together, we definitely wanted, but the circumstances were not. So I was putting a lot of stress on us. And I remember our most recent trip earlier this year, I had planned the whole thing because I'm meticulous with those planning. Mm-hmm. I will plan, I would mark everything down to the T. And so I planned a vacation earlier this year for us. And that was my primary focus. I didn't tell him. But in my mind, I was like, this will be baby dancing all through. Mm. But it didn't work out. I ended up stressing myself to the core. And, I just gave up. I just called him he was looking at me one day like, nah, this lady's about to lose it. Mm. And I just called him. I was like, you know what? I'm sorry. And you have to also listen to your partner, because sometimes we're stressing this man and they don't know how to, especially if it's a guy who is a calm guy. I know what I mean.
Yeah.
I will not say,
I know what you mean.
Me, but like, honey, it's okay. But they're stressing them. So I actually had to apologize to him, and I told him, you know what? I give up. When it's time, it will be time. So I had to get to that place where I just accepted that, you know what? I do want kids. All I ever wanted my entire life. I think that I had when I was 5 or less, because I think I started really building my dreams when I was 5.
Right.
All I really wanted to do was be a mother. I knew that I wanted to be a pediatrician because I love kids. I told my dad I was going to give him 32 grandchildren. And to his dying bed, he asked me about his 32 grandkids, which I didn't give him. Aww. And I just knew that I think my own talent is just to be nurturing, to be a mother, I'm so at ease with the little people, and they know it. And, it's a mutual respect between.
Right.
So not being able to do that within the first 5 years of my marriage was, it's quite intense and traumatic and difficult.
Yeah, I would only imagine. And I mean, I'm really sorry to hear about what you went through, especially with the pressures of the community. I only imagine how that has impacted your outlook. Sometimes, you reach the point where you're just like, you know what? It seems like it's something I have no control over, and when it happens, it will happen. And trust and believe it's going to happen. Honestly, I look forward to an update episode with you carrying your 32 children.
Hey, that was 5-year-old me.
Hey, it's still doable. Right.
It's true.
Right.
Okay. You know what? Auntie Anya's going to send child support.
Hey, by then I would have been a billionaire. Amen.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I was just going to highlight the whole aspect of pressure from the African society. You know, a couple of friends and I, we recently spoke about that in an episode. I'm not sure when it's going to air, but it may air before or after this. But we were talking about this aspect of the African timeline, right? Everybody wants you to, you know, oh, when are you getting married? When you hit a certain age, you should have been married, right? When you hit another age, you should have had kids after marriage and things like that. Like, people have become so insensitive towards what the realities of these people that are in this, experiencing these ordeals could be going through, right? I really appreciate the fact that you have really opened up to me and to the listeners about your experiences and about the things that you were going through and probably are still going through, because this actually sheds more light on what goes on behind the scenes that people don't see, and then they come with those stupid, insensitive questions about when are you doing this or when are you doing that. Like, number one, is none of your business. I mean, I may sound a little bit rude, but really it's none of your business why I'm not having a child or getting married or at the appointed time per the African standards. You know what I mean? People go through stuff. You have shared your stuff that you've gone through, and it's very pertinent for people to really be sensitive to these things. You're not having kids in this, I mean, 5-year-old, you wanted to have 32 kids. I mean, even so, not necessarily 32, but the grown-up you still wanted to have kids and nurture children. You know what I mean? So the fact that you're not having children, it's not by choice, obviously. But those questions come off as it's your choice or you are not doing something right. You know, so I really want to plead with all those aunties and uncles and mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters, cousins, whatever, like, try to be sensitive to these things. You know, I mean, I, for one, would tell people off. I mean, nobody comes to me. I know my family, they go to family members to ask about me, because nobody will have that audacity to come to me and ask, because I will tell them off for sure. But it shouldn't be that way, honestly. It shouldn't be that way. Like, we should learn to be more sensitive towards things like that and not put much. Look at the pressure you went through. Imagine someone coming to carelessly ask you about why you're not having children and stuff like that. It just adds more to that stress, which is unnecessary, you know. So it's something that we have to be very, very mindful of, you know, and let's just mind our business. I always say that if we learn to mind our business, then life will be way more easier. There will be less wars. There will be less conflicts. There will be less, you know, fights, basically. Like, there will be more love spread if we just learn to mind our business and cheer each other on throughout this journey of life. Just saying. Now, let's talk about your work at the Fibroid Awareness Cam. And I mean, I know you, in the introduction, you already said a lot of the things that you guys were doing and stuff like that. But what have you learned about the women and fibroids in our community, especially back in Cameroon or Africa as a whole?
So the first observation I made very early on is that there are many who are dying to get this info. Or let me rephrase, not that. There's many who is eager to get this info. However, for whatever reasons, maybe, you know, those pressures we're talking about, or those taboos or those views, or they're just scared to be put out there, they would not necessarily want to come up to the front. Most of them, you know, just scared. So we set up stuff. And I remember Abima and I having a conversation last year when we really started, and we were pumped up, we were fired up. You can imagine us, like, you know, really want to do good for our community. And we're thinking charity begins at home.
Yeah.
Let's start from this angle. And we didn't get that response that we were looking for. It was very dry. It's very dry. Personally, I even got some people asking me that, what's your point? What do you think you're trying? What do you think you're driving at? Like, what's your mandate?
Right.
But we have a big sis of mine who's back in Cameroon, who has been doing, you know, stuff for the community, who has been doing stuff for women in her community in Limbe. And, you know, I linked up with her and I talked to her. I was like, she was like, no, babes, calm down. Like, these things take time.
Right.
Like, it's not like people are not listening, but you need to understand that a lot of things that deal with women in our community really is tricky. It's tricky. You know, I mean, how do I explain it? It's tricky because in as much as some of the women really need this information, it's just the way the community will label a woman, or, you know, let me just use the word label for lack of a better word. The way they will label a woman.
Or stigmatize.
Yes, exactly. That's the word I'm looking for. There's a lot of stigma that surrounds things that concern women. And so, a lot of that has pushed a lot of women in the background where they don't want to be seen in such places. Oh, we are going for a fibroids awareness seminar. Fibroids has a bad, stigma attached to it. It's not a very positive look. So, so she advised me. She was like, calm down and give it time and don't stop. Don't give up. Just keep at it. And even if you just get one person listening in, that's all you need. And so that drove me to the point where last year I was doing a lot of live sessions, a lot of online live sessions, a couple of Zoom meetings. I was really just engaging with the audience from an online perspective. But we did have physical workshops in Limbe. And our plan, actually this year we had bigger plans, but unfortunately I had COVID and I could not. And also my partner, Dr. Abime, also had life changed as well. So we were not really in the position. Everything that we planned kind of like just went out the window. But we still have things that we're planning. Maybe we might not 100% implement everything this year, but we will make sure that before the year ends, we at least reach a percentage of what our target audience was. I'm currently working on my website. It's ready to go, really. And it's very personal to me because I'm working on it myself. But it's ready to go. But I just feel like every time I'm about to put it out there, I'm like,
Yeah.
You kind of feel like you missed out on something. So, but I believe in the next couple of weeks that should be out there and there'll be a lot more information on that page. We do have an Instagram page where, Dr. Abime and I used to put content from, literally every day, but life happened. We kind of fell off for like 2 months, but we'll be back on there. But the point and the whole point of this group is really just to get the information out there. Right now, we're not really trying to treat people, but we are trying to give people information and also to help them get their first-hand diagnosis.
Right.
So we always arrange, when you come for the seminars, we encourage people to register for free ultrasound. So when you come to the seminar, it gives you an opportunity to register for the free ultrasound scans, which we do. We're supposed to have like 2 of the scans happen this year, but, so we'll probably only have 1 before the year ends.
Right.
So in the next coming weeks, there'll be a lot of information on our page. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and that website that's coming. So there'll be a lot of information on how we're going to, carry out the sensitization and then registration for the ultrasound scan. So also it's been challenging because you're trying to do something which is good, which you're trying to use to educate your people, to help them. But sometimes you're getting a backlash. Yeah. So it's like, do I just let it go? I'm telling you, when I started, within the first week I started, women in Nigeria were reaching out to me like crazy. A lot of Arab women scattered all over the world were reaching out to me. My timeline is full of non-Cameroonians. The Cameroonians were not, and it was for them. The Cameroonians were not coming up. And Habima was so disappointed. We just encouraged the days I was disappointed, she would encourage me. The days she was disappointed, I would encourage her. So we're just trying to encourage our sisters. I know, and now the more I spoke about it and the more I got vocal about it, many more people that I knew in my inner circle, whom I didn't even know had similar situation. I've also just said, casually, I've just said, well, babes, thank you. Yeah. Because me too, I had a situation like this, but I don't think I was ready to start. Anya, I wasn't ready to talk about it. I promise you, I wasn't. Because you feel like it's personal. Like it's
it's very personal.
You don't know if any other person is having the same struggle. So you're like, no, I don't want to put myself out there. Maybe people would mock me. Maybe people would think I'm for us African women, you cannot be deemed as an infertile or barren woman.
Yeah. That's so very true.
It's very tough to deal with. But then again, I want to say that in as much as fibroids affects fertility, you don't actually get infertile because you have fibroids. But if you are careless with your fibroids, you could actually put yourself at risk of being infertile. Because one of the things when I heard that I had fibroids, when I was diagnosed, I was scared. But my current gynecologist, we had a long chat about this. And he was like, no, relax. Your problem is actually really because you're stressing yourself. like the process I explained to you, because we're apart, and every time we meet, I'm thinking about the fibroids, I'm thinking about my biological clock, I'm thinking about all those things. So he's like, relax, give yourself time. I would say just take 6 months off, you and your husband, then you guys don't think of it like you're baby dancing, but just learn to love yourselves. Yeah. Learn to get to know yourselves. Yeah. So for women who are actually living with their partners, that's what they should do, as opposed to straining themselves. And that's why I said it's important to have a partner who, is also interested in your health. Because African men most times are just like, it's your problem. It's your problem. It's you. You are the woman, it's your problem. And half of the time, even if you have fibroids, your man can be the one who has, some fertility issues, and not you. Yeah. Because there's women carrying babies to full term with fibroids, and the baby is fighting with the fibroids as well. So, right. It's this. I think this conversations that we're having today, and we will continue to have, are very important, because these are the topics that spark an interest. Yes. Yes. And, bring clarity to people who feel like their minds are clouded when they're going through this.
Yeah, that's very true. I totally agree. And I just want to really thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing all these words of advice, especially to women who are going through this, or women who may be ignorant about issues, and even men who may be ignorant about such issues, because we need both parties to work together, right? And you said a few things that were really important. I mean, it just made me think of this. I was watching a video. I don't know, I've watched so many videos lately, but this lady said a lot of our physiological and physical issues that we experience with our bodies and our health, they actually stem from a mental perspective. So they stem from stress, like mental trauma and even emotional trauma. All the stressors that we experience actually influence the sicknesses that we tend to have, So sometimes we have so much power over our bodies that we have no idea about. Literally our body can heal itself. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that, but our mind, when we condition our mind, even I would say mind, but of course your mental, your brain, that's where a lot of hormones are secreted, and of course, if you're getting stressed, the hormones that are not as good will be released and stuff like that. In the easiest way, that's just the easiest way I can put it. I'm not trying to get too technical, but there's a lot of things that we can overcome in our health if we get rid of the stress, so that's a very important aspect in managing such an issue as well, like to try to relax, just try to exercise, and other things that we have already spoken about. But I just wanted to thank you for spreading that knowledge through this platform, spreading the knowledge through your Fibroid Awareness CAM organization. And I will definitely put in the contact information in the show notes. For your social media handles and also the website when it comes out. We will be very glad to let our listeners know. And so on a personal level, if people have to contact you, how do they contact you for maybe advice or resources?
Okay, so you can either contact me on my personal Instagram page. That's where most people actually reach me. And I used to have a specific WhatsApp number for when people reach me, but it's not as popular as my personal one. At the moment, I'm not very comfortable sharing my personal WhatsApp, so I just rather have people reach me on social Instagram, either on my personal page or on the Fibroids Awareness page. And there's an email as well, so you could email me. I'm open like that. In fact, I want you to reach out to me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Like if I see I'm on my phone. Listen, I have 10 digits. My phone is the 11th one, so. I'm always on that guys.
Yeah, so I'll have all that information posted in the show notes for those who are interested in reaching out to you. Again, I just want to thank you so much for such a conversation. These stories really give me different perspectives, and I hope it does same for the listeners. And hopefully we can be more sensitive to such issues and just sensitive to the way people choose to live their life or the experiences that they have. Because sometimes certain things that people experience are not by choice, it just happens. So we have to be very sensitive about that. So I hope that this conversation does not end end here. I hope that we can take the conversations to our circles, whether it be family, friends, or associates, and really just talk about how we can be better at treating one another and being kind to one another, and also just be vulnerable and share our experiences, because you will be surprised what your neighbor is going through that you have no idea about. And when you have that idea, hopefully it can inspire you to be better as a person, especially when you towards that person, inspire you to have more empathy, have more compassion with the way you treat people that you may or may not know. So I just want to thank you so much, and you're always welcome here. And yeah, so I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening to our show. If you want to participate in the show or find out more helpful resources, then visit www.livingafricanpodcast.com for more information, or email us at hello@livingafricanpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to connect with us on all social media platforms at Living African Podcast. You can also connect with Anyo directly on Facebook or Instagram at Anyo Fambard. Thanks again for listening, and let's not forget to be more understanding and nicer to one another.